I got pregnant with the villain's kid and quietly raised him. But the kid didn't look like me at all. He was the spitting image of his villain dad. Honestly, I didn't mind not having a say in his looks, but the main thing was I was terrified his father would find out. Of course, he did. The main villain stared at the mini version of himself, his eyes dark as he looked at me. Daisy Johnston, how do you explain this? After a brutal night of overtime, I forced myself back to my place and immediately collapsed into bed. The classic tragedy of a grinder, I was dead tired. I fell asleep fast and had a dream. There was a guy in the dream. He was wearing a sharp suit with his shirt slightly open, showing off his healthy skin and collarbone. His eyes were intense, and he looked at me defensively, like he was holding back. His Adam's apple kept bobbing. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he looked furious. Naturally, a gorgeous specimen like that could only exist in a dream. My heart was pounding. I reached out and touched his face. It was burning hot. When I touched him, his eyes blazed at me. I covered his eyes. He was too distracting, so I just kissed his moving Adam's apple instead. The hot guy's hands were hanging at his sides, but after a moment, they squeezed my waist. I bit his mouth because it hurt so much. I kissed him awkwardly. He held back for a moment and then flipped me onto the bed. My thin clothes were torn right off. His eyes were full of lust. His voice was husky as he grabbed me hard. You asked for this. 10,000 words omitted here. The sun was already out when I woke up. I stretched, my face flushing when I thought about the dream. I actually had a wet dream. How starved for a guy was I? I still had to go to work. I squinted and reached for my phone, but my hand landed on something soft and warm. I jumped. I sat up, blinked, and realized I was in a strange room. And there was a guy next to me. A super hot guy. The one from my dream. Was last night not a dream? Did I really sleep with a guy? He was showing off his muscular body, with only the important parts covered. Everywhere else, there were hickeys and bruises. Looks like I was biting and clawing him last night. I gasped, clutching my chest, and realized I wasn't wearing anything either. What did I do? I distinctly remember collapsing into bed after work last night. Why am I here? Did I walk into the wrong room? My body ached, like I'd been beaten up. I pushed through the pain and got out of bed. Looking at the clothes scattered everywhere, I could imagine how crazy last night was. I picked up a few pieces of clothing and put them on. I saw a black wallet on the floor. Curiosity made me pick it up and open it. The first thing I saw was an ID, Victor Brown. Isn't that the name of the villain in the angsty romance novel I was reading? I was obsessed with that novel and thought the villain was a total psycho, so his name stuck in my head. Victor Brown, 28 years old, a smart and ruthless graduate of a famous business school abroad. He's quick, precise, and gets things done. He's the arch nemesis of the hero, Alex Bernard. They're constantly at each other's throats, even fighting over the female lead. In the end, the righteous hero completely destroys him. I stared at the gold embossed card in the wallet and just sat on the floor. Did I wake up in the novel? The book describes this main villain as vicious. He has zero mercy for anyone who crosses him. I actually slept with him. He's going to tear me to shreds. I have to get out of here, fast. I can't afford to mess with this psycho. I remember clearly that I was the one who kissed him first. This was obviously a high-end, super expensive hotel. I finally got a chance to breathe once I reached the restaurant downstairs. I must have looked exactly like the other woman who just got caught, because everyone was staring at me weirdly. I checked myself out. My lipstick was smeared on my chin, my eyes were swollen, my neck was covered in hickeys, and my arms were bruised up, like I'd been abused. How long had it been since Victor Brown was with a woman? I was a walking sign of a one-night stand. Anyone with eyes could tell what happened. But one thing was certain, I had transmigrated. This face wasn't mine, but it looked a bit like me. I took a moment to process the fact that I was in a novel. I cleaned myself up in the restroom and checked the ID in my purse. The original owner had the same name as me, Daisy Johnston. She was 25, and, crap, she worked for Victor Brown's company as a pretty face receptionist. I guess I need a new job. I found her apartment and opened the door. The place was a disaster, clothes and packages everywhere. I got a massive headache. I can't stand a messy room. I rolled up my sleeves and started cleaning right away. I finished cleaning, and it was already getting dark. I wiped the sweat off my forehead. I checked my phone. It was 6 p.m. I was starving, and with last night's craziness, I felt like I was about to pass out. Just as I was about to order food, a call came in and scared me so badly I nearly threw my phone. It was Mr. King's number. I scratched my head. He must be a co-worker of the original owner, maybe even Victor Brown's personal assistant. Hello? Daisy Johnston, where were you last night? My eyes widened. My heart raced. Did the main villain figure out I slept with him? No way, though. I did a quick clean of the room before I left. You couldn't tell a woman had been there. I even used a wipe to mostly erase the blood on the sheets. If you didn't look closely, you wouldn't see a stain. Plus, Victor Brown stays in his regular presidential suite, and he has all the security cameras shut off on his floor. I was super careful when I left. There's no way he could know. I have to deny everything. I suppressed my panic and pretended to be totally clueless. I went straight home and slept last night. Why, Mr. King? There was silence on the other end. Are you sure? Of course. What's going on, Mr. King? He seemed to relax a little, and his tone softened. Nothing. Mr. Victor just lost something, and I was wondering if you saw it. My heart was still pounding after I hung up. That was terrifying. I need to disappear. Quitting out of the blue would be suspicious, so I forced myself to work for a few more days before I quit as quickly as possible. The HR manager paused, probably wondering why I was leaving. I knew from my co-workers that the original owner worked hard to get into the company since Brown Corp. is one of the top companies in the city. But finally, they signed my resignation papers. Half a month passed after I handed in my work. I saw Victor Brown a few times during that period. Every time, I felt guilty, but I had to keep pretending nothing had happened. Victor didn't act strange at all. He wouldn't even look at me. But I slowly realized that Victor must have been drugged that night. Otherwise, how could he be taken down so easily? Did the drug cause amnesia or just confusion? I shook my head. I shouldn't overthink this. On my last day of work, I let out a huge sigh of relief. I was safe. My heart couldn't handle hanging out around the main villain. I needed a good meal tonight to celebrate. I ordered some spicy roasted pork hock. But when I smelled it, I threw up. That used to be my favorite. But the greasy smell made my stomach turn. I hugged a tree and vomited everything. Lunch had been long digested, so it was just sour bile. Clutching my aching stomach, I went into a pharmacy to get some antacids. Maybe the stress was too much lately. The pharmacist asked about my symptoms and then hesitantly asked, "When was your last period?" I was blank. I hadn't had a period since I transmigrated into this body. I didn't know the cycle. But then I realized I'd been in this body for almost a month, and the normal cycle is about that long. I blinked at the pharmacist and mumbled, "I don't remember." The pharmacist looked exasperated. Then she asked, "Have you been sexually active?" My face instantly went red, but I told the truth. Once, about a month ago. The pharmacist looked like she knew it. "It sounds like you might be pregnant. Take this test." I stared blankly at the small box she handed me. It was a home pregnancy test. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. I went to the bathroom with a complicated mix of feelings, and the result was 2 lines, positive. I felt utterly zapped. I touched my stomach. A one-night stand resulted in Clatter. The pregnancy test stick fell to the floor. The news hit me like a truck. I hadn't even been in a serious relationship, and now I was going to be a mother. I didn't believe it. Victor Brown was definitely intense that night, but I couldn't believe it happened after just one night. I quickly took out my phone to make an appointment at a clinic, just to be sure. I floated home like a ghost and collapsed onto the bed. I wanted to scream, "Are you kidding me, universe?" Whether it was exhaustion or pregnancy, I just fell asleep. I woke up late the next morning. I scrambled out of bed. I still had to get to the clinic. Thank goodness my appointment was for 10 a.m. If I missed it, all that panic last night would have been for nothing. I threw on some random clothes and rushed to the hospital in a cab. I got my report quickly and handed it to the young doctor. He had clean features, and even with a mask, he was handsome. The white coat made Dr. Jack Lee look professional and distant. I looked at his badge, OB/GYN Jack Lee. Jack looked up at me and said calmly, "You're 4 weeks pregnant." I was prepared, but I was still shocked. I asked cautiously, "Really?" "Yes. If you want to keep it, you should register for prenatal care soon and come for checkups regularly." "What if I don't want to keep it?" "I wouldn't recommend it. Your checkup shows your uterine wall is quite thin. If you terminate this pregnancy, it will be very difficult to get pregnant again later." "Okay, I understand, doctor." I was dazed as I walked out of the clinic, touching my stomach. There was really a tiny life in there. I walked distractedly along the hospital path. It was May, a pleasant temperature, and the hospital grounds were nice. But I wasn't in the mood to enjoy the view. As I walked, a little girl bumped into me. She had huge eyes, soft, pink skin, and cute pigtails. She wore an adorable outfit. She didn't cry when she hit me, just looked up and smiled. She was so sweet. I couldn't help but touch her little face and quietly ask, "Hey sweetie, did you get hurt?" The little girl hugged my leg, smiled, and shook her head. "No, pretty lady." What she said just melted my heart. She was so lovable. Just as I was about to hug her, a woman in her 30s ran over, shouting anxiously, "Ellie, stop running. Mommy." The woman saw the girl holding my leg and quickly apologized. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry, kids are like that." I smiled gently. "It's fine. Ellie's adorable." Watching the woman walk away holding Ellie, I suddenly felt everything click. I had a breakthrough. Having a baby might be great. Considering how handsome Victor Brown is, our baby definitely wouldn't be ugly. I touched my face. I'm pretty confident about my looks, too. Besides, the original owner was an orphan and had no family. It would be nice to have a family member of my own, a soft, cute little person. With that thought, I immediately turned around, went back to the hospital to register for prenatal care, and got my folic acid prescription. Then I went to the supermarket for groceries and essentials. I was out of work and had no short-term income. But now that I had a baby to feed, I needed to eat healthy, and cooking myself would be safer. I used to write online novels, and they did pretty well. But my mom was strict when I was in school, and I got too busy with work later. Now I could go back to it. I got out my laptop and found a few platforms to try. Several months flew by. My stomach was much bigger, but I was still pretty thin. I really didn't have much of an appetite. My online writing career was doing well. I had launched 2 books, and my guaranteed monthly pay after signing a contract was about $10,000. It was time for another checkup. I wore a loose dress to the clinic. Jack Lee, my doctor, saw me alone again. His brow furrowed, and he asked, clearly annoyed, "Where's your husband? Why do you come alone for every appointment?" I looked at him, knowing I couldn't tell him the baby was a result of a one-night stand and the father didn't even know I existed. I could only give an awkward, polite smile. The baby's father passed away. Jack was shocked. Oh. I put on a sad, grieving look. We didn't date long, and we weren't married, but I truly loved him. This baby is his last gift to me. Jack had an "I'm a terrible person" look on his face. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. I pretended to wipe a tear. It's fine. Dar. Jack couldn't have known. Jack's eyes showed sympathy. If you ever need anything, please call me. It was true, you had to fake it, till you make it out here. After the checkup, I was heading home. But then I saw a familiar face at the hospital entrance, Victor Brown. Why was he here? Even if he didn't remember that night, I still felt a pang of guilt when I saw him. I wore a big sun hat when I left. I pulled the brim down low. I saw Victor Brown walking right toward me. I acted like I didn't see him, kept my head down, and brushed past him. I was desperate to get away, but I felt him stop and his eyes settle on me. I was sweating buckets as I walked. Then I heard a sweet voice behind me. Victor, hurry up. Your mom's waiting for you. The intense stare finally faded. I almost died of fright. Thankfully, I didn't run into Victor Brown again during my checkups. Jack became really attentive, though. He'd ask me out to dinner and even bring me homemade desserts. I started noticing that Jack's feelings were changing. The way he looked at me was different, but I was pregnant, so I couldn't encourage him. Finally, my due date arrived. I checked into the hospital a few days early. Jack often came by to bring me snacks. Within a couple of days, the nurses were giving me weird looks. One day, a young nurse quietly asked me, "What's your relationship with Dr. Jack?" I saw the gossip in her eyes. I had to set the record straight before I ruined Jack's love life. We're just friends. I don't have family nearby, so he's just being extra helpful. The gossip faded from the nurse's eyes. She muttered, "I thought the baby was Dr. Jack's." I nearly spit out the water I was drinking. This nurse has an imagination. I was getting restless lying in bed, so I got up to walk around. In the garden, I saw Victor Brown again. I quickly ducked behind a tree. I peeked out and saw Victor Brown pushing a woman in a wheelchair. The older woman looked frail and pale. She seemed to be scolding Victor about something, her face showing helpless frustration. Victor didn't say a word, his expression unchanged. I leaned in to eavesdrop, but suddenly, someone behind me called out, "Daisy, what are you doing?" I nearly fell on my butt in shock. I looked up and saw Victor Brown's eyes darting over. I quickly grabbed the person who called me and pulled her away. It was a woman from another room, who was also due soon. She looked at my panicked face and asked hesitantly, "Daisy, what's wrong? Did I scare you with a loud voice?" Yeah, a little. I'm fine. But I could feel an intense stare fixed on me from behind. I nervously went back to my room, my heart pounding. I hadn't even sat down when I saw a familiar person walk in. Victor Brown walked straight toward me. I immediately stood up, clutching my huge belly. I stammered, "Mr. Victor." Victor looked me over and asked, hesitating, "Daisy Johnston?" I forced an awkward laugh. "Mr. Victor remembers me?" Victor let out a cold laugh. "Of course. Ms. Johnston, you made quite an impression." I saw Victor's eyes locked on my belly, and a million curse words ran through my mind. Victor raised an eyebrow, his cold eyes narrowed, and his gaze turned icy. "You're pregnant?" "No, man, don't look at me like that. I'm scared." Just as I was freaking out, a calm voice spoke up. "Daisy, I brought you your favorite boba tea. Drink it now." Jack Lee walked over, smiling, holding the tea. My savior had arrived. As Jack looked at Victor with confusion, I grabbed Jack's arm and said cheerfully, "Honey, you're here." Jack froze, staring at me. I quickly winked at him. He caught on, patted my head, and smiled. "What's wrong? Bored?" I gave an awkward smile, feeling Victor Brown's judgmental stare. I pulled Jack closer. "This is Mr. Victor, from the company I used to work for." "Mr. Victor, this is my husband." Jack immediately put on his usual distant look. "Hello, Mr. Victor." Victor nodded in response, glanced at me, and then left. I took a deep breath to calm my racing heart. Jack looked at me, full of concern. "What was that? Who is Mr. Brown? Why were you so nervous around him?" I let out a shaky breath, trying to figure out what to tell Jack. One lie always leads to another. "Mr. Brown knew my late boyfriend. I'm afraid he'll tell my boyfriend's parents, and they'll try to take the baby from me." Jack didn't say anything after hearing that. He helped me sit down and handed me the boba tea. "Have something sweet. Try to relax." As soon as I took the tea, a sharp pain shot through my stomach. I felt something warm between my legs. The tea dropped right onto the floor. "Jack, my stomach hurts so bad." Jack saw my soaking wet pants and said nervously, "Daisy, don't panic. The baby is coming. I'm taking you to the delivery room now." As I was being wheeled in, I thought I saw Victor Brown watching me from a distance, but he walked away when he saw Jack next to me. I couldn't worry about that now. I was in agony. I pushed for over 3 hours before the baby finally came out. Afterward, I felt like I was drenched in sweat, like I'd been swimming. Just before I passed out, Jack held the baby up for me to see. It was a little boy. I forced myself to look at his tiny, wrinkled face. He was so ugly. I passed out immediately. When I woke up, I saw Jack Lee busy next to the bassinet. "Jack." Jack smiled at me. "You're awake. Come see the baby." I looked at the baby lying next to me, wrinkling my nose. "He's so ugly." Jack burst out laughing. "Huh, he'll look better in a few days. He's not ugly at all." I looked around, confused. "Where's my postpartum nurse?" "She went to get hot water." "Jack, you should go. Don't miss work. I have the nurse here." Jack had been smiling, but his smile noticeably faded when I said that. "Daisy, why do you always keep everyone at a distance like this?" "Jack, I see you as my best friend, always will." Then I turned my head away. Someone like Jack should find a sweet, kind girlfriend, not a woman who already has a baby. Jack stared at me for a moment, then turned and left. He didn't come back until I was discharged and went to the postpartum care center. Jack was right. The little guy looked much better after a few days, pale, soft, and adorable. When he opened his eyes, they were big and bright, like grapes, staring right at me. I fell more in love with him the longer I looked. I named the little guy Star Johnston, hoping he'd shine like a star and be cheerful. His nickname is Star. The day I was leaving the care center after my recovery, Jack showed up. He looked frustrated and complained a little. "Daisy Johnston, if I don't reach out to you, you won't bother to contact me." I smiled at him. Jack had helped me a lot lately, but I couldn't give him false hope. "Oh, come on, Dar. Jack. You're so busy with work. I didn't want to bother you." 3 years went by in a flash. Star is 3 years old now. He's a lot bigger than the tiny baby he was. Jack still doesn't have a girlfriend. His mother even wonders if her son is gay. I laughed so hard my stomach hurt when I heard that. Jack gave me a look. "What's so funny? You're a mother now. Act your age." I glared at him, pretending to be fierce. "This lady is forever 18. Star looked at me curiously. "Mommy, what are you laughing at?" Jack opened his arms, smiling warmly. "Star, come here. Godfather needs a hug." Star happily jumped into Jack's arms. I truly owe Jack a lot over the years. He has more than made up for the lack of a father figure in Star's life. Star had a little cough today, so I took him to the clinic. I didn't expect him to run straight to the OB/GYN department to find Jack. It was lunchtime, so Jack took Star and me for a walk in the garden. Over the past few years, Star's features have grown less and less like mine. Especially his eyes, they're an exact match for Victor Brown's. It gave me a headache. I considered moving to a different city just in case. Star was good in Jack's arms for a bit, then he wanted to walk on his own. His wobbly little steps were so cute. Lunch break was over, so Jack went back to his office. I had to wait for the test results. I saw a playground with a slide ahead and walked over with Star. I walked behind him. Star looked back at me and accidentally bumped into someone. I quickly rushed to apologize, but when I looked up, I froze. It was Victor Brown. Victor looked at me, his face showing no emotion. He was on the phone. Just leave it there for now. We can discuss it when I get back to the office later. Star quickly backed up, hugged my leg, and looked up at the man, his voice sweet and soft. Sorry, mister. I panicked and tried to pick him up. Star's face looked too much like Victor Brown's. I couldn't let him see. But before I could react, Victor crouched down, his eyes locked on Star. His voice was surprisingly gentle. It's okay. What's your name? I looked at Victor in confusion. I bent down to pick up Star, but Star was quick to talk. My name is Star, mister. Victor stood up too, his eyes full of scrutiny. Star? What's your full name? Victor's eyes were fixed on me. I quickly turned sideways to shield Star's face. I forced myself to sound calm. Mr. Victor, what a coincidence. Yeah, quite a coincidence. I'm leaving now. I started to walk away, holding Star. Victor's eyes turned dark and intense, as if he could see straight into my soul. You haven't told me the child's full name. Why should that concern you, Mr. Victor? I think you know exactly why it concerns me, Ms. Johnston. Star's small hands were around my neck, his little face resting on my shoulder. He had fallen asleep. I was frantically trying to think of what to say to Victor. Victor's sharp eyes narrowed. Ms. Johnston, you should explain why your child looks so much like me. I'm very curious. Mr. Victor, it's a big world. Is it really that strange for people to look alike? Is it? The woman from that night 3 years ago. It was you, Daisy Johnston. I snapped my head up and looked at Victor. What? What are you talking about? Victor scoffed. Daisy Johnston, you've been playing me. Looking at his face, I realized I had forgotten he was the main villain, a decisive man who was brutal to anyone who crossed him. I lost all my energy, and tears welled up. Victor Brown, you didn't lose anything that night. I was a virgin, too. Victor frowned, seeing my teary face. Why are you crying? Please, just leave me and my son alone. I promise Star will never ask you for money or anything. I won't ever tell him who you are, okay? Victor stared at me silently, a flicker of something almost like fire hidden in his eyes. Daisy Johnston, you're saying you want my son to never know his father, for his entire life. What do you want me to do then? Just don't separate me from my son. Victor's lips curved into a faint smile. What's your relationship with that doctor? I looked at Victor in confusion, then realized he meant Jack. My rebellious side kicked in, and I retorted, it's none of your business. Victor's dark eyes fixed on me, and the air pressure around him suddenly dropped. You're saying it's none of my business when you're raising my son. I looked at him, my face red with either anger or heat, my eyes wide. Victor looked at me and seemed amused, wondering when this woman got interesting. Then he said calmly, how about this, we make a deal. My mom keeps pushing me to find a girlfriend and get married. You help me deal with her, and we can bring the child to see her. She's been sick for a long time. It would make her happy. I couldn't believe even the main villain had to deal with his mom nagging him to get married. I gripped the hem of my shirt and hesitated before speaking. Okay, I can cooperate, but you have to promise me you won't try to take Star away. Victor's gaze was intense as he looked at me. Agreed. But you can't try to run away with him either. He's my son, and I have the right to be a part of his life. This was the best I could hope for. I let out a soft breath. Okay, I promise. I went to pick up the test results, and Victor Brown followed me the whole time. I walked ahead, holding Star, and could feel his eyes glued to me. The doctor said Star had a mild case of pneumonia. It wasn't serious, he just needed some medicine and to eat well to boost his immune system. The doctor saw Victor Brown standing by the door. Is that the father? I was about to shake my head, but Victor walked right over and said in a low voice, I am. The doctor, an older guy, looked at Victor with a judgmental expression. No matter how busy you are, you shouldn't leave all the childcare to the mother. Ms. Johnston has brought the little one to pediatrics countless times. This is the first time I've ever seen you. Victor just stared at me with an intense, quiet look, then gave a faint Star wasn't feeling well from being sick and was sleeping the whole time. He's getting bigger, and my arms were starting to give out, my hands were aching. I was about to switch him to my other arm when Victor reached out and took the baby. As soon as Star was in his arms, his little face rubbed against Victor's chest, and his small hands wrapped around Victor's neck. Victor stared down at the child in his arms, dazed for a moment. He looked at me and asked, Where do you live? Huh? Victor looked at Star, a rare trace of tenderness in his eyes. I'll take you home. Once we got in Victor Brown's car, he handed Star back to me. Star drowsily opened his eyes, rubbed them, and stared at Victor. Star turned to me. Mommy, who's this mister? I looked at Star, unsure how to explain it. Just as I opened my mouth, I heard Victor's low, husky voice. I'm your dad. Star rubbed his eyes, looked at Victor, then looked back at me. Mommy, is that true? Under Victor's overwhelming gaze, I could only nod. Yes. That's your dad. Star was clearly thrilled. He struggled out of my arms and lunged at Victor. Daddy. Did you come back from fighting monsters? Victor caught Star's small, soft body and looked at me blankly after hearing what Star said. I looked down, avoiding his eyes. Ever since Star started playing with other kids, he became aware of the existence of dads. The little guy kept asking me, all curious, why every other kid had a dad but he didn't. I just made up an excuse, telling him his dad was off fighting monsters and saving the world. Star hugged Victor happily. At first, Victor looked a bit awkward about Star's enthusiasm, but slowly, a slight smile appeared on his face. Even though Star was meeting Victor for the first time, he was very attached to him. Maybe blood really is thicker than water. Victor drove, and I held the baby. Star stared at him curiously. He asked sweetly, his voice a little nervous, Daddy, are you leaving again? Are you going to fight monsters? Victor kept his eyes on the road, his voice gentle. Do you want Daddy to leave? Star looked at Victor seriously. No, but then who will save the world? Before Victor could answer, I quickly cut in. Star, are you happy today? Victor gave me a long look, then returned to driving. Star said cheerfully, I'm happy. We finally got to my place. I'd saved up some money from my online writing over the years and put a down payment on a small 2-bedroom condo. Victor Brown stopped the car and frowned, looking at the complex. I held Star and quietly said, Thanks for the ride. Victor pulled out a cigarette, then put it back, probably remembering Star was there. Then he said, You live here? I didn't get why he was asking, but I answered honestly. Yeah, I do. I have plenty of empty houses. Just pick one to live in. I stared at Victor Brown, dumbfounded. He was clearly looking down on my cozy little place. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. No thanks, Mr. Victor. We're fine here. The area is too messy. It's not safe. I'm careful. Besides, I've lived here for over 2 years, and I know all my neighbors. Victor rubbed his forehead impatiently. I'll buy you a condo. I waved my hand. That's not what I mean. The two of us are perfectly happy and comfortable here. And it's close to Star's preschool. Victor glanced at me, his eyes searching, but he didn't say anything. I held Star and hesitated before speaking. Well, if that's all, we're going up now. Aren't you going to invite me up? I don't think that's necessary. My place is simple. You wouldn't be comfortable. But I have to see my son's living environment. If it's not good, we're moving to one of my places. I got angry at the sheer arrogance of this man. Mr. Victor, you're getting a little too involved. Victor raised a light eyebrow, his deep, cold eyes narrowing, the look in them chilling. Too involved? Seeing his expression, I immediately backed down, looking away. No, not too much. Not at all. I got out of the car, and just as I was about to walk, Star shouted, "Daddy, hold me." Victor immediately softened, a rare change in his whole demeanor. He held out his hands for Star. Star's little hands happily reached out and wrapped around Victor's neck. Daddy is so tall. Much taller than Mommy. Victor slightly curved his lips into a gentle smile. Of course, because Daddy is a man. I walked ahead, and Victor, holding Star, followed. I heard Star say, "I'm a man, too. Will I be as tall as you someday?" Definitely. Yay. Awesome. Hearing the two of them, my heart melted a little. I finally reached the door of my 2-bedroom. I opened it, and my cozy little apartment was visible to Victor Brown. It was decorated in warm colors, with a comfy, cream-colored sofa, an open kitchen, and a master bedroom and a small child's room. Victor was huge. I handed him a pair of guest slippers when he walked in. Victor stared at the men's slippers, then took off his shoes and walked right in without putting them on. I looked at the strange man, totally confused. Mr. Victor, there are slippers right here. I don't wear other men's slippers. I looked at Victor with a question mark over my head. He's so high maintenance. Fine, don't wear them. Star got down and pulled him into his little room. Daddy, look at my favorite toy. I looked at the spotless apartment and breathed a sigh of relief. I guess it passed his inspection. It's not a big place, but I put a lot of effort into decorating it. I walked to the door of Star's room and looked at the two of them. Star, what do you want for dinner? Mommy will cook. Star hasn't had much appetite since he got sick, and he barely ate lunch. He needs to eat and take his medicine. I saw Victor look up at me. I impulsively asked, Mr. Victor, would you like some? Victor actually nodded. Star grabbed Victor's big hand and said happily, Mommy, I want spaghetti. Mommy's spaghetti is so good. Daddy will definitely love it. I dug my own hole, so I had to fill it. I went into the kitchen and started making the noodles. After a crazy amount of cooking, it was finally ready. I set the noodles on the table and called out, Star, stop playing. Time to eat. Victor looked at my spaghetti like he was constipated, but Star was excited. Daddy, it's delicious. Eat up. I admit the presentation wasn't great, but it didn't warrant that look. Mr. Victor, it doesn't look great. You don't have to eat it if you don't like it. As soon as I finished, Victor picked up his chopsticks and started eating. He ate slowly and gracefully, clearly having been trained in table manners since childhood. Victor finished, wiped his mouth, and looked up at me, his expression calm. After dinner, Star was so tired he could barely keep his eyes open. I gave him his medicine and sent him to his room. Before falling asleep, Star grabbed Victor's shirt corner and murmured sleepily, Will I see you when I wake up? I stroked Star's head, my heart feeling heavy. It was the first time I'd so strongly felt how much Star longed for a father. Victor's voice was low. Of course. Daddy will stay here with you. Star finally fell asleep reassured. I quietly pulled Victor out of the bedroom. We sat across from each other in the living room, staring. Well, I was the one staring more. Mr. Victor, you saw the place. Are you satisfied? Victor was cool and expressionless. You've changed a lot over the years. I glared at Victor. Mr. Victor, don't change the subject. Victor seemed to scoff. Then he said, it's acceptable. Then Mr. Victor can leave now. Victor crossed his legs and tapped his fingers on the sofa. Then he said calmly, I promised Star I'd stay with him. I completely lost it. Mr. Victor, what are you talking about? I'm staying with Star. Aren't you supposed to be busy? Not today. I had a massive headache looking at Victor, but I had no choice. I finally let out a sigh. Suit yourself. I went back to my room. I saw the editor's notes on my screen and knew I had to get back to work to make a living. After writing for a while, I heard people talking outside my door. I was curious, so I opened it and saw Mr. King standing there, handing a laptop and files to Victor Brown. Hearing the door open, Mr. King looked up and saw me peeking out. President, here are the files and the laptop you asked for. President, why are you at Daisy Johnston? I felt awkward and gave an embarrassed laugh. Hee hee, Mr. King, what a coincidence. Victor looked at Mr. King's gossipy expression and said without emotion, you can go now that you've dropped them off. The sound of the door closing shut out Mr. King's shocked, curious look. Victor gave me a cold look. I couldn't help but roll my eyes at him and quickly closed my door. The sky slowly got dark. I stretched, opened my door, and saw Victor Brown still in the living room. Victor was working intently on his laptop. His smooth, pale face was handsomely chiseled, and his dark, deep-set eyes had a captivating luster. Everything about him, his thick eyebrows, sharp nose, and perfectly shaped lips, screamed nobility and grace. I touched my pounding heart. This man was truly a walking temptation. I cleared my throat. Mr. Victor, you're still here? Victor didn't look up, his voice low and languid. Star isn't awake yet. If he wakes up and I'm gone, I'll break my promise. I couldn't argue with that. He had a point. I went into Star's small bedroom and saw him still asleep. Being sick definitely makes him sleepy. I quietly walked over and touched his head. It was soft and fuzzy. Star slowly woke up and immediately started whining for a hug. Mommy, hold me. I leaned down and hugged him. After a moment, Star's eyes lit up, and he asked, where's Daddy? Daddy's in the living room. Star tossed his small blanket off and ran out barefoot. I quickly grabbed his slippers. Star, put your shoes on. I walked into the living room and saw Star jump into Victor Brown's arms, wrinkling his perfect suit. Daddy, you really are here. I thought it was a dream. It's not. Daddy keeps his promises. It was late, and time for dinner again. Star wouldn't get out of Victor's lap. Victor was surprisingly patient and held Star without a hint of annoyance. Victor Brown had to leave. It was so late, and I couldn't have a strange man stay in my place. I smiled and asked Star, Star, come to Mommy. Let's go out and get something good to eat, okay? Star hugged Victor's neck. Can we all go, Daddy? Victor nodded. I quickly put clothes on Star, put on a hoodie myself, and we all headed out. Mr. Victor, take your laptop and files. It'll be too late for you to come back up for them later. Victor looked at me. Heh. Thanks for the reminder, Ms. Johnston. Downstairs, Star walked on his own, holding my hand and Victor's hand. I was about to ask Star what he wanted to eat when I looked up and saw my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen saw me and greeted me happily. Daisy, taking the little one out? I nodded. Yeah, Mrs. Chen. Taking a walk? Mrs. Chen nodded, then her eyes lit up as she looked at Victor Brown. Daisy, is this Star's dad? He's so handsome, and he looks just like Star. I opened my mouth to explain, but realized there was no easy way. Victor gave Mrs. Chen a rare nod. Was he actually being nice? We took Star to a pizza place. They make great, clean pizza, and Star loves it. Victor's expensive suit looked totally out of place in the little shop. Everyone was staring at him, which made me feel awkward. We ordered, and the food came out quickly. Star happily ate, sauce all over his mouth like a little cat. I picked up a napkin, smiling as I wiped his face. I suddenly felt an intense gaze on me. I looked up and met Victor Brown's dark eyes. His eyes were like a deep lake. One look, and you felt like you were drowning. When our eyes met, all the noise in the room disappeared. All I could hear was my heart racing. Victor rubbed his brow. He was acting weird around this woman. How could that be? He'd met women who were prettier and gentler than her. Why was he acting this way with this shameless woman? Then he suddenly stood up, startling me out of my motherly moment. Mr. Victor, what's wrong? Victor snapped back, his face grim. Nothing. Keep eating. I'm going out for a smoke. I watched Victor Brown's back, completely baffled. Men are impossible to figure out. Star pouted at me. Mommy, why do you call Daddy Mr. Victor? My friend Mindy says her mom calls her dad honey. I was drinking water. Star's bold statement made me nearly spit it out. I wiped my mouth, pretending to be mad. Star, where did you learn that kind of stuff at your age? Star wasn't affected by my mock anger at all. He said seriously, Mindy told me. She also said her mom and dad are always together. I didn't know how to explain my relationship with Victor to Star. I could only say, Star, you won't understand this yet. You'll know when you're older. Star looked troubled. Then I need to grow up fast. Victor didn't come back inside after dinner. I took Star to the counter to pay. The owner, Ms. Wang, leaned in conspiratorially. Daisy, that was your husband, right? He's gorgeous. No, Ms. Wang, no. You're imagining things. Oh, don't be shy. That handsome man is the spitting image of Star. How can you deny it? I was too tired to argue. I just said, Ms. Wang, I'm paying. What are you paying for? Your husband already paid. He paid? Yeah, he settled up a while ago. Ignoring Ms. Wang's knowing look, I led Star out of the pizza place. I saw the man leaning against his car, a spot of red glowing between his fingers. His suit jacket was open. He looked relaxed and distinguished. He saw Star and me, squinted, and put out his cigarette. I looked into his dark, calm eyes and paused. Then I said seriously, Mr. Victor, it's late. You should go home. Before Victor could respond, Star tugged on my shirt, his voice earnest. Mommy, can Daddy sleep with me tonight? I quickly interjected, Star, Daddy is very busy. How about Mommy sleeps with you tonight? Star's eyes slowly got red. Star is usually so well behaved, thoughtful, and obedient. He hasn't cried much since he was a baby. Seeing him like this, I panicked and felt terrible. I was about to pick him up when Victor strode over and took Star in his arms. Daddy will sleep with you. Star was thrilled. Really? Then he looked at me and quietly asked, Is that okay, Mommy? I had no choice but to nod under Victor's intense stare. Victor drove in silence on the way back, and I didn't say anything either. When we got home, I was irritated with Victor Brown. He's gorgeous, but having him stay over was too much for me. So I snapped, Victor Brown, you don't have a change of clothes here. Why don't you leave after Star falls asleep? Victor looked at me, all fired up, and seemed amused. He gave a slight smile. Victor Brown? Why not Mr. Victor anymore? I sat on the sofa, looked at Victor, and muttered through clenched teeth, What, I can't call you by your name? Isn't that what it's for? Victor's mouth curved slightly. He said slowly, calling me Victor Brown sounds better than Mr. Victor. I thought to myself, this man must be a masochist. He actually likes this. Victor found me amusing, like an angry bunny. But his face remained calm. I'll spend time with Star. I'll leave a bit later. I was a little relieved by Victor's response. I bathed Star, put him in his pajamas, and he lay in bed waiting for Victor to tuck him in. Victor took off his suit jacket. His tie was already loose from dinner, so he just pulled it off. The muscles under his shirt were barely hidden. That made me flash back to that night 4 years ago. I might have been the one to start it, but after that, Victor was the one who kept me pinned to the bed. His muscles were hot and powerful. He didn't give me a chance to resist. I even remember the feeling of his sweat dripping onto my chest. As I was thinking about it, my face started to burn. Victor looked at me, seeing me spaced out and staring at him. He leaned down. My ear felt hot, and his cool, low voice whispered, "Daisy Johnston, what are you thinking about?" I jumped. My ears were hot, too. I snapped, I wasn't thinking about anything. Victor Brown chuckled, twice. I was shocked. The main villain laughs. Victor washed his hands and leaned against Star's headboard. Star scooted over. "Daddy, get in. Let's sleep together." Victor lay down right next to Star. I watched the sweet father-son scene and felt like a third wheel. I don't know if Star sensed my thoughts, but he looked at me and said, "Mommy, you come sleep with us too." Victor looked over, his eyes a little darker than before. I quickly waved my hands and refused. "You guys sleep. The bed is too small for 3 people." Star thought for a moment. "True. Then how about we sleep in Mommy's room? Mommy's bed is bigger." I quickly backed out of the room and closed the door. "Time for bed, guys. Mommy's going to sleep too. Good night." Star says the most shocking things. I went to the bathroom to quickly brush my teeth, changed into my pajamas, saw my laptop, and decided to work a little more. I wrote for a while and checked the time. It was already midnight. It was too late, so I was going to use the bathroom and go to sleep. I had completely forgotten about Victor Brown. It had been a busy day, and I was exhausted. I groggily walked out of my room and opened the bathroom door. I was stunned by the sight. Victor Brown was using the toilet. I was so shocked I fell on the floor. Victor seemed just as startled as me, and he flinched. Victor's dark eyes instantly darkened. He pursed his lips and his voice was low. "What's all the screaming for?" I covered my eyes and snapped in a whisper, "What do you think I'm screaming about? Why are you still here?" Victor gave me a knowing look for a few seconds. "It's not like you haven't seen it before." Victor walked over to me and said calmly, "Aren't you going to get up?" I scrambled to my feet. I saw Victor staring at my chest. His breathing was heavy, and his eyes were dark. I followed his gaze. I'd moved too quickly, and the top button of my pajama shirt had come undone, exposing my pale chest and the faint outline of my cleavage. I covered my chest instantly. My face flushed bright red, and I whispered, "Pervert." Victor crossed his arms and scoffed. "Your figure is nothing special." I was about to argue, when, frowning, he pulled me and Star over to the Brown family's house. Victor's mother looked thrilled to see Star and me. She hugged Star and looked at me. I wondered why this boy couldn't find a girlfriend. Turns out he had one all along and saved such a big surprise for me. After she finished, Victor's mom tried to make me stay for dinner. Victor pulled me into a hug. "Mom, Star can stay here with you. Daisy and I are going out on a date." Victor's mom gave him a playful look, then said, Go on, go on. Just leave my grandson with me." Just as we were leaving, we saw a young woman walk in, her voice cheerful and excited. "Auntie, what are you doing?" "Oh, Lily's here. The young woman was wearing a white dress, like a vibrant butterfly. Her sweet smile immediately vanished when she saw me. She looked particularly upset seeing Victor Brown's arm around my shoulder. Her expression immediately turned sour. "Victor, who is this?" Victor said flatly, "My girlfriend." Lily Yi looked like she was about to cry. "She's Victor's girlfriend?" Victor's mom quickly pulled Lily down to sit and signaled for Victor and me to hurry up and leave. I don't know what Victor's mom said to Lily, but I rarely saw her at the Brown house after that. I grabbed Victor Brown's tie. He had to look down at me. I stared at him, pretending to be fierce. "Tell me. What's your relationship with Lily Yi?" Victor actually laughed. His big hand squeezed my waist. "What, are you jealous?" "Humph. Tell me." "She's my mom's best friend's daughter. She's been coming over since we were kids. I treat her like a little sister." "Oh, a childhood sweetheart, huh?" Victor bent down and kissed.